the geography of the swarm, asymmetric naval warfare, and the environmental determinism of narrow seas. Chapter 3, Asymmetric War, the Advantage of the Small. Act 1, The Hook. The history of human conflict is frequently misunderstood as a chronicle of intellectual triumph, a steady, linear march upward from primitive stone tools to hypersonic weaponry and integrated digital command systems. Yet a more rigorous, analytical examination of our past and present reveals that military strategy is rarely authored by isolated human genius. Instead, the ultimate trajectories of warfare are strictly dictated by the physical environment. To understand the profound causes of why certain tactical adaptations succeed while others inevitably fail, we must first observe the proximate chaos of a specific, highly adapted ecological theater. Imagine the Strait of Hormuz on a sweltering July afternoon in the near future. The temperature of the air exceeds 100 degrees Fahrenheit, while the surface of the Persian Gulf simmers just below 90. Through this narrow, congested maritime corridor, a multi-billion-dollar United States Navy Arleigh Burke-class destroyer cuts through the heavy, humid atmosphere. This warship represents the absolute apex of modern blue-water naval engineering, an organism that required more than a decade to design, fund, and construct. It is a floating fortress equipped with the Aegis Combat System, an integrated marvel of computing power and radar arrays designed to track and destroy airborne threats from over the horizon. However, as the destroyer navigates the critical choke point between the Arabian Peninsula and the Iranian coast, it enters an environment for which its evolutionary lineage simply did not prepare it. Without warning, the horizon erupts into a deadly, highly coordinated display of asymmetric warfare. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has initiated a saturation attack, a tactic specifically designed to overwhelm the cognitive and mechanical limits of the defending warship. From hidden coves and fortified coastal bunkers, a swarm of fast attack craft surges forward. Leading the charge are the Seraj-1 patrol boats, modeled after high-speed civilian racing vessels and capable of reaching speeds of 75 knots. Flanking them are the Zulfikar-class semi-submersible boats. These vessels are armed with anti-air missiles and supercavitating torpedoes capable of traveling underwater at incredible velocities, exceeding 360 kilometers per hour. Furthermore, heavier catamaran vessels like the Rizvan, weighing 25 tons and capable of 45 knots, join the fray to provide heavy machine gun fire. The surface of the water churns with the overlapping wakes of dozens of these highly maneuverable, low-cost vessels, darting in unpredictable, intersecting patterns designed to confuse the target acquisition sensors of the encroaching Leviathan. Simultaneously, the airspace above the narrow strait fills with the distinctive, terrifying whine of internal combustion engines. A massive cloud of Shard 136 loitering munitions, mass-produced at a cost of only a few $1,000s each, descends from the Iranian mainland. These drones are not sophisticated fighter jets. They are essentially flying explosive charges powered by simple moped engines. Yet their sheer, overwhelming numbers constitute a profound strategic threat. The commander of the destroyer is suddenly faced with a three-dimensional nightmare. The incoming attack features vectors converging from the surface, from beneath the waves, and from the sky. This layered strike envelope has been meticulously planned to compress the response options of the defending crew, turning the mandatory transit route of the commercial shipping lane into a lethal trap. The defender must suddenly track, identify, and prioritize dozens of incoming threats that are deliberately blended with civilian maritime traffic, drastically complicating the rules of engagement. Inside the Combat Information Center of the destroyer, the proximate causes of the ship's vulnerability become agonizingly clear. The Aegis Combat System is undeniably a technological marvel. Its AN-SPY-1 phased array radar can detect and track hundreds of targets simultaneously, projecting a protective electromagnetic shield around the fleet. However, identifying a target on a screen and physically destroying that target in the air are two entirely different mechanical processes. To intercept an incoming missile or drone, the destroyer must launch a standard missile. As this interceptor approaches its target, it requires continuous terminal guidance. This critical function is provided by the Mark 99 fire control system, which utilizes a radar illuminator to act like a highly focused high-beam headlight in the dark. The illuminator bounces a concentrated beam of radio frequency energy off the enemy drone, providing a signature for the interceptor to lock onto and destroy. Herein lies the fatal biological limitation of the apex predator. A modern destroyer may possess dozens of defensive missiles in its vertical launch cells, but it typically possesses only 3 or 4 Mark 99 illuminators. This architecture creates a severe, inescapable mechanical bottleneck. The ship can only guide a handful of interceptors at any given millisecond. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps understands this mathematical vulnerability perfectly. By launching 50 cheap drones and 30 fast boats simultaneously, they deliberately exceed the fire control bandwidth of the defending ship. The radar operators watch helplessly as the system becomes completely saturated. The central computers function perfectly, the defensive missiles launch flawlessly, but there are simply not enough illuminators to guide the necessary munitions to all the incoming targets before the physical distance closes to zero. The swarm, through sheer numerical superiority, engulfs the giant. This devastating vulnerability is not merely a theoretical exercise. It was dramatically demonstrated during the Millennium Challenge War Games conducted in 2002. During this massive, $250 million military simulation, retired Marine Corps Lieutenant General Paul Van Riper was given command of the opposing Red Forces, representing a Middle Eastern adversary. Utilizing low-tech, asymmetric swarm tactics, including coded messages hidden in calls to prayer and fleets of small attack boats, Van Riper unleashed a preemptive strike against the Blue Forces. The results were catastrophic for the conventional military. Within 10 minutes, the swarm overwhelmed the missile defense systems of the Blue Fleet, sinking 16 major warships, including an aircraft carrier. The simulation exposed a fundamental flaw in centralized, high-tech naval doctrine when forced to confront low-tech, decentralized aggression in constrained waters. This encounter exposes a profound economic asymmetry that threatens the very foundation of modern maritime hegemony. The unit cost of a new flight III Arleigh Burke destroyer is rapidly ballooning, with estimates pushing well past $2 billion. The cost to train the highly specialized crew and maintain the complex nuclear and conventional systems of the broader fleet adds exponentially to that figure. In stark contrast, the drones and fiberglass fast boats utilized by the swarm tactics cost a mere fraction of a single % of the destroyer's value. The cheap Iranian drones are produced in massive quantities, with analysts estimating an industrial capacity of thousands of drones each month. When a global superpower is forced to fire a multi-million-dollar interceptor missile simply to shoot down a $20,000 loitering munition, the economic exchange ratio becomes structurally unsustainable. If a conflict of this nature persists for months or years, the superpower will inevitably bankrupt its national treasury long before the regional adversary exhausts its supply of low-cost, mass-produced munitions. The economic burden of mitigating piracy and asymmetric attacks, which includes military costs, increased shipping speeds, rerouting, and massive insurance premiums, already costs the global economy billions of dollars annually. Adding the loss of capital-intensive warships to this equation accelerates the financial ruin. This stark imbalance is not merely a modern anomaly born of the drone age, nor is it a temporary strategic fad. It is the inevitable result of a fundamental environmental mismatch. The multi-billion-dollar warship is an organism evolved specifically for the deep, open oceans, where long-range sensors and massive kinetic power grant absolute, uncontested dominance. But when this blue-water behemoth is forced to operate in the narrow, congested confines of a brown-water strait, it is instantly stripped of its primary evolutionary advantages. The physical environment actively conspires against the heavy, the complex, and the expensive. Instead, the geography heavily favors the cheap, the numerous, and the expendable. To survive in this terrain, military architecture must mimic the adaptations of nature. The swarm, much like a colony of aggressive ants or a hive of defensive wasps, lacks a single, brilliant central brain. Yet, through the sheer volume of decentralized, self-organized agents acting upon simple, local rules of engagement, the swarm achieves a deadly, emergent intelligence. This collective behavior can overwhelm the most sophisticated, centrally commanded organism on Earth. This phenomenon dictates that any military force, no matter how technologically advanced or financially endowed, will find itself severely degraded when fighting against a swarm in a geographically constrained environment. The speed, the deafening noise, the sheer volume of incoming threats, and the resulting mechanical saturation are merely the proximate symptoms of a much deeper, underlying environmental condition. To truly understand why this specific style of warfare perpetually dominates the Persian Gulf, we must strip away the modern technology and examine the eternal, unchanging bedrock of the region.